Hello, I'm Donna Marie, celebrant soul doula and end of life guide. I'm also the host of the Sacred Moments podcast, a space to normalize heartfelt conversations around mortality, grief, love legacy, and end of life planning. Through stories, reflections, and soulful dialogue, we explore the sacred transitions of life, the beginnings, the endings, and all the meaningful and sacred moments in between. Today's sacred conversation is with Jerome Paige, Meditativist, meditation instructor, and 21-year Bikram yoga practitioner. We start off getting to know Jerome, and then we discuss a bit about what I call Jerome's love legacy passion project, Symphony 77. In this powerful two-part episode, we explore stories of identity, ancestry, healing, and reflections on mortality, immortality, rebirth, and connection.
Jerome Paige, and I carry a lot of monikers. Professionally, I'm known as an economic, business, and organizational development consultant. And that's one line of what I call vocation. The other line of vocation, I'm an expert witness in economic damages cases. In civil litigation, somebody gets hurt, injured, or breach a contract, and they need to hire an economist to estimate their losses, monetary losses. And then if on the plaintiff side and on the defense side, they need somebody to look at the plaintiff's numbers. So I'm forensic economics is often referred to as courtroom economics or litigation economics. So I apply economic principles, standard economic principles, to estimating loss of income, loss of capacity to work, loss of household services. So that's my second vocational line. And then I have avocational lines. I've been a practitioner of Bikram yoga. This is will be, I think it'll be 21 years. I'm also a meditation instructor. And this year I launched what I call my Symphony 77, the Wonder Within Me reflection sessions. And what I'll be doing is using the concept of a symphony to pull together all the strands of my life and share them. We started that on January 1st, inaugurated our Symphony 77 inquiry circle. And the tagline for the inquiry circle is where curiosity meets connection. And each month I'll be handling a theme. And for the month of January, the theme was immortality and mortality.
Which I enjoyed immensely. And, the immortality, mortality, when I saw the topic, like, I have to do this. I have to be present there. One of your questions at your birthday party was, how do you see us working or connecting in the future? And obviously, I didn't really know the answer to that question then. I thought it would just be in the yoga studio. But now I'm a follower of yours. And then during your 77th virtual birthday gathering, I just realized how you practice your yoga in the streets, right? It's not just in the studio and in the hot room, but as you asked us to answer three questions, but then every person you introduced, you had something beautiful to say about them. And it was clear that you had these lifelong relationships with many of the people on the call. And I was just overwhelmed with joy just to be invited to be in the room and to be surrounded by so many beautiful people.
Thank you very much for that.
I'm wondering, do you theme every year?
Yes, I have what I call my passion projects. So I don't know how long I've been doing it, but the this year is called Symphony 77. This is my year 77 project. What makes it a year 77 is that I turned 77 in December of 2024. So the year goes from December 2024 to through November 2025. For my year 76 project, I looked at spiritual jazz and meditation. And the tagline there was making liberation, freedom, and empowerment happen. I was looking at the spiritual jazz artists between the years 1965 and 1974. In 1965, I graduated from high school, Germantown High School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And in 1974, I received my master's degree in economics from American University in Washington, D.C. Later in life, beyond those years, I'd become interested in meditation. And upon reflecting, I realized that my then most recent, like say 2020 through now, expansion of meditation, I realized that meditation had been one of the soundtracks of my life, because a lot of the music that I listened to, Doug and Jean Carn, Pharoah Sanders, Alice Coltrane, Sun Ra, Archie Shepp, the list could go on. They incorporated many of the ideas that I had discovered later. So returning to the years 1965 to 74 around the theme of the spiritual jazz and meditation, I realized I had both discovered and rediscovered something that had been with me for a long time. And so that was my year 76 project.
Okay.
So I could keep going back. But yeah, so each year I don't know how long I start. I would adopt a theme for the year.
At one time, I themed my years, but then after a while, I stopped. I don't know why I stopped. Maybe I couldn't come up with a theme. And then I think once I maybe made it to my double fives, you double sevens, I was just kind of in awe. Like, I'm 55 years old. And even today, I have a 40-year-old son. It's like, oh my goodness. Grateful, obviously, to have this much life, but I used to celebrate with my theme, and I don't anymore. And I love that you are continuing to do this, and it's inspiring to me. I just want you to know that I'm inspired by what you're.
Thank you. Yeah.
You mentioned did you say you grew up in Pennsylvania? Did I hear that correctly?
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My story is a story of many African American families. I was born in 1947. At that time, many of the women who had migrated from the South to the North would go back home to have their kids. So I was born in Bluefield, Virginia. My parents were part of the Great Migration from Bluefield, Virginia, Bluefield, Roanoke, Lynchburg, Virginia area. They're not in the same proximity, but my mother's from the Bluefield, Virginia area, and my father's from the Lynchburg, Roanoke area. And so, like many Black families, they migrated to the north. And in the case of my parents, they migrated to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So I have 7 siblings. The first 3 of us were born in Virginia, even though we were living in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So when people say, "Where are you from?" some days I get tongue-tied, because yes, I was born in Virginia. I grew up in Philadelphia, first in North Philadelphia, then in Germantown. And then in 1965, I moved to Washington, D.C. to go to Howard University. And I've been in Washington, D.C. since 1965, except for about an 18-month period. So in terms of places that I've lived the longest, D.C. would be where I'm from. And then Philadelphia would be the years where I grew up, but then I was born in Bluefield, Virginia. I did my undergraduate work at Howard University. I graduated an undergraduate degree in 1971 in economics. And then from Howard University, I went to American University in Washington, D.C., and I got my master's degree and my PhD in economics from American University.
So I noticed, and I don't know if I'm correct about this, so I'm not going to guess, but you have been married for a lot of years.
Yes, 57.
Wow. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so
it's long as I've
So
been
you're
alive.
by my so you're like 2 or 3 years younger than my daughter. And I
Okay.
don't know whether you've met her coming in and out of the studio, but
I
yeah.
have not met her. I've seen her in social media, and the first time I heard of her was at Mahogany
Right.
Books.
So her company is her name is Gina Page, and she's
Mm-hmm.
the president and CEO of AfricanAncestry.com. And AfricanAncestry.com is a DNA testing company that will help you determine what peoples you're related to in on the mainly in the west part of Africa if you happen to have lineage there. So that's her company, and they've been in business for 20 almost 22 years now.
So, not that maybe you can answer this question, but I was talking to my 6-year-old grandson this morning, and his mom is Indian and my son is Black. And I told him we were having this conversation today, and I mentioned your daughter and African ancestry. And he's like, "Oh, can she do mine? Because I'm both." And then I
Yes.
thought about it that and if I'm correct about it, it links your lineage based on your mom's DNA.
No. Well, it's the son, the grandson.
Yes.
So let's use the grandson as the example. We have to do a little biology 101, but men have both the X and the Y chromosome, right? So a male can trace their biological father's line and
Hmm.
their biological mother's line. And so there's a part of our DNA that doesn't change as it's passed down from generation to generation to generation. So your grandson can take the tests.
Hmm.
Given his age, he would need parental permission, but uh, it would tell him what his genetic ancestry is. It would be two different tests, one on his mother's side and one on his father's side. So as we say that, so the while the company has a specialty in African ancestry DNA, they have the largest database of African ancestry DNA samples in the industry. When they test for paternal DNA for African American males,
Hmm.
the DNA can come back European approximately 35% of the time. So if you had a enslaved woman into pregnancy by forced an enslaver male and has a
Hmm.
son who has a son who has a son who has a son, that male line carries the DNA of the non-African. Same thing can happen so for the AfricanAncestry.com, for the male tests, 35% come back non-African. For the female, 8% come back non-African. So the company tests for ancestry. So you could take a test and they'll say you're from China, or it can say that you're from Europe. But if it happens to come back African, it most likely can tell you what country and what tribe you're related to. So I share genetic ancestry. My maternal side with, well, both on the male and the female side, Nigerian. On the male side, I share ancestry with the Yoruba, and on the female side with Fulani and Fulbe.
And that's what it makes African ancestry unique because it identifies the exact tribe.
Well, they are what they call a single lineage test.
Hmm.
So other companies give you an admixture test. What I mean by that, when you get the results, it'll say your percentage of this, your percentage of this, your percentage of this. African ancestry is what it makes it unique. Is not that it's African, uh, is that it gives you single lineage. It will tell you
Okay,
whatever single lineage it is. If it happens to be African, then it can tell you what peoples you're related to in Africa.
thank you. Thank you.
Now, well, first of all, if you know the ancestry of one of the relatives, so if you know the ancestry on his mother's line, it's no need to take the test. I mean, you know the answer. But if you're trying to find out the ancestry on the father's line, then might be some reason, or vice versa. Most people, a lot of people know their ancestry through genealogy or through, so they know that, that what the ethnic and racial makeup of the relatives are. And if you already know that, then the test is only going to tell you, confirm what you know.
So I know you did the test and also did a voyage to Africa
Well,
to.
I didn't, yes, I've done the tests, yes, yes. So, and I've traveled to Africa, but I haven't been to the countries that I share ancestry with. I've been to Ghana. I went to Ghana in 2019 for the year of return. Ghana in 2019 celebrated the 400th anniversary of the first enslaved folks being registered at Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. So Ghana, the Ghanaian government had a year-long celebration in 2019 called the Year of Return. It was welcoming everybody from the diaspora back home. And the official month for the year of return was in August of 2019. So I was in Ghana the last week of July, first week of August. I've been to Sierra Leone uh, as part of that. My daughter's company also has African ancestry family reunions, or so you can visit other countries through AfricanAncestry.com. And I went on, even though I didn't share the ancestry with the Sierra Leoneans, I went to experience one of the African family reunions. And so I think in 2019, so maybe in 2020, 2021, I went to Sierra Leone. And then I went on one of the Tony Browder trips to Egypt. And that was the 25th anniversary tour, but we didn't go on the 25th year because of COVID. So I think we went later. So I've been to Ghana, to Egypt, and to Sierra Leone.
Let's talk about just the visit to the African continent and what impact that had on you. And if you tell me whether or not you believe that's important for an African American to experience.
I grew up in the 60s, and so a lot of discussions about people going back to Africa. It's been a theme for years, and well, actually not years. Ever since Africans were enslaved, there have been people who want to go back, make it back to Africa. So it's been part of our history to want to connect and reconnect to what we call the motherland. And being involved with AfricanAncestry.com, I would get all the stories, and I'd also get from people who traveled there. When we went to Ghana, I organized a trip to Ghana for family and friends. It must have been about 20 of us.
Nice.
What, even though I had heard all the stories and seen all the people with the emotions, I never expected that I would experience that. Because I'd read about it, I'd seen it, seen it. From the moment you stepped off the plane, there was something magical about the experience. And we processed that during the trip and after the trip, a lot of different dimensions of that. And I think one of the things that were universally shared, that you didn't realize how much you carried with you emotionally in the United States. Not that it paralyzes you or anything like that, but once you step outside of it, and the whole question, let's just call it, I think it might be oversimplifying it, but let's just call it the racism disappears. And you don't realize you were carrying racism because it's part of who you were. Didn't stop you from functioning, didn't stop you from getting up, didn't stop you from going to the yoga studio. But once you stepped outside of it, you realized that you were carrying something. So
trauma.
universally, there was that experience. And
Yeah.
then you would be in situations where there was no white people. I mean, again, it's everybody, all the professionals, all the workers, everybody was Ghanaian. And not that there weren't white people in the country, and like all countries, they have Europeans and Chinese and Indians. But when you go into the villages, that's what you see. The experiences, I could go on and on about the experiences, the shopping experiences. We went to one of the largest outdoor markets they claimed was in Africa. It was overwhelming. I mean, anything you wanted to get, you could get at that market. Anything
Uh,
from a casket to a pair of sandals. It was amazing. And then the craftsmanship and the workers and the art. So that was one set of experiences. The other set of experiences, I'd heard people talk about going to the slave dungeons and what that meant. But when you go to the dungeons and you go down into the dungeons and you realize that on top of the dungeons, on top of everything there, stood the Catholic Church or the
mm,
church. It was
mm,
just the juxtaposition, the surrealism of it all. Uh,
yeah.
it just you just feel different. And then when you get a chance to look out the door of no return and try to imagine what it was like, somebody who had been walked several hundred miles from the interior to the coast to be shipped somewhere they didn't know anything about. I'll share one other experience from Ghana trip, is that when it, it, the Ghanaians were captured in the interior and marched to the coast, they encountered a river, the Aswan River, which was known as the last bath. And that was their last bath before they were loaded into the ships. And so part of the tourist experience and the historical experience is to visit the last bath. And that became symbolic for a lot of us on the trip in a number of ways. We made that symbolic of being our first bath back on the continent. I grew up in the church, like many people of my generation grew up in the church. My family were very much. And when I stepped into the river, I had this flashback of being baptized at Grace Baptist Church on 29 East Sharpneck Street. I don't even know how old I was. And that particular baptism didn't mean anything to me for age and a lot of other reasons. But as I stepped into the Aswan River, I felt like I was being baptized, and using the Christian terminology, I was born again.
Spiritual cleansing. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
and there's similar in situations in Sierra Leone and in Egypt. You hear it, you see it, but when you experience it up front, it's just as emotionally raw and meaningful. The experiences never get old. So,
Where did you go in Egypt? And can you share a bit about that experience?
well, we went to Cairo, we went to Luxor, we went to um, I can't think of the names, but we went to um,
Alexander.
no, not Alexandria, Karnak. Well, not on where it's called Karnak, but where the Karnak Temple is.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I was sick that day. That was one of the main reasons that I wanted to go, was to visit it. So part of the architecture in Egypt around the pyramids and all the tech and everything is cosmologically based. The situation of it is tied to natural cycles.
Mhm.
And at Karnak on in December, which is nationally known or globally known as Christmas, there's the lining of the star that ultimately became known as the Star of David and all that. And just to see it come up, just coming up through the spaces between the pillars. But yeah, we went to, we were about there 10 or 12 days down the Nile to where the Nubians were,
Mm-hmm.
group's name. And also, we're speaking about the last bath in Ghana. Uh, there were two other people on the tour. There happened to be Bikram yoga practitioners. So we did some Bikram poses in the Nile,
How
which
nice.
was also symbolically very liberating.
Did you experience a naming ceremony?
Yes, we did. We did. Wow, you're going to embarrass me now.
It's okay. No, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I just wanted to know if you had the
Well, no, no,
experience.
no, no, no. Yeah, I think in Ghana, people are named by the day of the week they were born.
Okay.
So if you're Kofi, you might have been born on a Wednesday. And so I figured out what my name would have been given the day I was born, but I've forgotten what that is.
So I can look up my Ghanaian name.
Yeah, since didn't have the DNA connection to Sierra Leone. The other people got naming ceremonies, but I wasn't part of that. But
Okay.
subsequent to that, I did find out because my sister is our family historian,
Mm-hmm.
and on my father's mother's side, so that would be my grandmother, paternal grandmother. Her last name was Dungy. And if you follow the male Dungy line, it goes back to a Frances Dungy, female Frances Dungy, in 1701. Free African woman married to a Saponi male. And according to the genealogical records, she was from Sierra Leone.
Okay.
That's not a DNA test. That's the family history, the genealogy. So based on that, I do carry Sierra Leonean ancestry in me through my grandmother's father's line. I know that gets to be complicated when you're talking genealogy.
So we did the journey toward immortality.
Well, it was what's what I call my Symphony 77
Mm-hmm.
inquiry circles. And the tagline is where curiosity meets connection.
Yes.
So
Okay.
my sessions are the first Fridays of each month, the Zoom sessions. And we discussed the immortality and mortality. And then for the subsequent Fridays in the month, I had my journal, meditative journal published, which would
Okay.
carry an article about mortality and immortality.
Okay.
Right.
I did
So,
want to, I thought I missed something because I saw where January 10th, we had the circle. January 15th, then you did the disc and immortality. And that was your journal.
right,
I thought I missed something. And then January 22nd, you did trust and immortality.
right.
And then on my birthday, January 29th, you did everyday experiences and immortality.
Right.
And as I was looking, I'm like, I missed all of these sessions, but okay, it's the first of every month. And then you also have your music and meditation session. And how often or frequent is that?
That's on the third Fridays.
Okay.
So I mentioned that I did the spiritual jazz and meditation last year for my
Mm-hmm.
year 76 project. I wanted a way to continue that. And one of the yoga studios, it's called Simon Says Yoga. And the owner, Shauna Simon, she asked me to develop a Friday night series. And we experimented with some things last fall, and we're doing what's called music and meditation. So that's an extension of my spiritual jazz. And coming up in April, it'll be the John Lennon tune, Imagine.